Welcome to Yehoshua's Daf Yomi Shiur, where the Daf continues daily until the complete revelation of Mashiach ben David, Messiah the son of David. Today we're starting a new chapter in Tractate Chullin, the 6th chapter, which is called Kisui Hadam, which means covering the blood. We start with the new Mishnah on the top of page 83b, the 6th parak, Kisui Hadam. The Mishnah says, Kisui Hadam noheg ba'aretz uvechutz ha'aretz b'fnei habayis v'shelo b'fnei habayis b'chulin aval lo b'mukdashin v'noheg b'chaya uve'of b'mizuman uv'she'eno mizuman v'noheg b'choi b'pnei shehu sofek. The Mishnah says that the mitzvah of covering the blood after slaughter is in effect in both Eretz Yisrael and outside of Eretz Yisrael, both in the presence, meaning the time of the temple, and not in the presence of the temple, and is in effect with regard to non-sacred animals, but is not in effect with regard to sacrificial ones. And it is in effect with regard to the slaughter of an undomesticated animal and a bird, with regard to animals and birds that are readily available in his home, and with regard to those that are not readily available and are hunted in the wild. And it is in effect with regard to a koi. Some people pronounce it kvi. It's sort of a mixture between I think it's a deer and a goat or something like that. It has the laws of both things, of a chaya and a behema. And it is in effect with regard to a koi, because it is uncertain whether a koi is a domesticated animal, and one is obligated. It is uncertain whether a koi is an animal and one is exempt from the covering of its blood, or whether it is an undomesticated animal and one is obligated to cover it. I'm going to check what a koi is and be right back. Okay, we're back. So a koi is subject to debate. There's some ambiguous. It has an ambiguous nature, and some suggest that it is a combination between a male goat and a female gazelle or female deer, type of deer, and it has the halachos of both. Okay, and that's the Mishnah. Let's see here. Did I say at the end of the Mishnah? Let's see. I think I probably said it. I'll say it again. Okay. And one may not slaughter a koi on a festival because covering its blood entails the performance of prohibited labor. That is permitted only if there is a definite obligation to cover the blood, and if one slaughtered a koi on a festival after the fact, one does not cover its blood until after the festival. Okay? That's the Mishnah. And now we start the Talmud. Mukdashin my time lo ilim mishum de Rabbi Zero damar Rabbi Zero asher tzarich shiyitein afar limatei ve'afar lamala lemata ve'lamala shenema v'shach v'ches damo v'chisahu yafar afar lo nemar ela v'afar b'lamed sheshoich tzarich shiyitein afar limatei ve'afar lamala. The Gemara asks, what is the reason one is not obligated to cover the blood of sacrificial birds? If we say it is because of the statement of Rabbi Zera, that is difficult. As Rabbi Zera says, one who slaughters a bird or an undomesticated animal must place earth beneath the blood and earth above it, as it is stated, and he shall pour out its blood and cover it with earth. Leviticus 17:13. It is not stated cover it with earth, but rather in earth, indicating that the blood must be concealed inside the earth. The verse teaches that one who slaughters a bird or undomesticated animal must place earth beneath the blood and earth above the blood. The Gemara continues, and here, with regard to a bird offering whose blood is presented on the altar, it is not possible for one to cover the blood with earth from beneath it, as How should one perform the covering of the blood? If one suggests that he should place the earth on the altar and nullify the earth to the altar such that it will never be removed from there, this is unfeasible, since by nullifying the earth to the altar, he is adding to the structure of the altar. And it is written with regard to the construction of the temple, all was in writing from the hand of the Lord, which he gave me to understand. 1 Chronicles 28:19. Indicating that the dimensions of the temple and all the vessels within were given prophetically and therefore not subject to change. Lo libatle kohavi chatitzo, and if one suggests that he should not nullify the earth to the altar, this too is problematic, as the earth constitutes an interposition between the blood of the bird and the altar. The Gemara explains why this statement of Rabbi Zera does not sufficiently explain why one is not required to cover the blood of sacrificial birds. Granted that it is impossible to place earth beneath the blood of the bird, but it is possible to place earth above the blood of the bird. If so, let him perform a covering of the blood from above. Mi lo tanya Rabbi Yonasan ben Yosef Omer Shachat chayva achar kach shachat behemo potor melechasois behemo ve'achar kach chayo chayav lechasois. The Gemara explains this suggestion. Isn't it taught in a Braita that Rabbi Yonatan ben Yosef says, if one slaughtered an undomesticated animal whose blood requires covering, and thereafter slaughtered a domesticated animal whose blood does not require covering, in the same location as the undomesticated animal, he is exempt from the obligation to cover the blood of the undomesticated animal as it is covered with the blood of the domesticated animal. But if one slaughtered a domesticated animal, and therefore slaughtered an undomesticated animal, he is obligated to cover the latter's blood, despite the fact that there is no earth, but rather blood of the domesticated animal beneath it. It is evident from this Braita that the mitzvah of covering the blood applies even when earth cannot be placed beneath the blood. The Gemara responds, the exclusion of sacrificial birds from the mitzvah of covering the blood, even from above, is in accordance with another statement of Rabbi Zera. As Rabbi Zera says with regard to meal offerings, for any measure of flour that is suitable for mixing with oil in a meal offering, the lack of mixing does not invalidate the meal offering, even though there is a mitzvah to mix the oil with the flour, lechatchila, ab initio. The meal offering is fit for sacrifice, even if the oil and the flour are not mixed together. And for any measure of flour that is not suitable for mixing with oil in a meal offering, the lack of mixing invalidates the meal offering. Similarly, if one slaughtered a domesticated animal, and thereafter an undomesticated animal, since it was possible to cover the blood of the former before slaughtering the latter, which would allow the proper fulfillment of the mitzvah of covering the blood, one is still obligated to cover the blood from above. By contrast, it is always impossible to properly perform the mitzvah in the case of sacrificial birds. Milotnan dam hanitaz vishal hasakin chayav lechasois alma degarir bechasilei hachnami nigrau nechasilei. The Gemara asks still, why is the mitzvah of covering the blood not applicable to sacrificial birds? Let one scrape the blood off the altar and cover it elsewhere. Didn't we learn in the Mishnah on 87b with regard to blood that spurts outside the pit in which the animal was slaughtered, and the blood that remained on the slaughtering knife, one is obligated to cover it? Evidently, the halacha is that one may scrape off the blood and cover it in a location other than where it spilled out. Here too, let us scrape the blood of a sacrificial bird off the altar and cover it elsewhere. The The Gemara answers, if the ruling of the Mishnah was dealing with items consecrated for the altar, indeed, the blood must be scraped off and covered elsewhere. But here, we are dealing with items consecrated for temple maintenance, meaning birds donated to the temple in order to be sold, the profits of which would be used for repairs. Such birds may not be slaughtered, and if one transgressed and slaughtered them, it is prohibited to derive any benefit from them. The Tana of the Mishnah holds that the mitzvah of covering the blood does not apply to a slaughtered animal that is forbidden for consumption. This concludes 83a of Chullin and the new parak of Kisui Hadam. Thanks for joining.